Oscars just wrapped up, but similar to the NBA season and to I guess football in a way, baseball not so much anymore. The Oscars never really stops, man. I mean, we're talking about it constantly, and not even a week after the awards, and we already got our first controversy for the next award season. Steven Spielberg penned a letter to the Academy. I think he's like the governor of the Directors Guild or something like that at this point, and he proposed changes to the eligibility of films for the Oscars next year. And basically, the letter said that films that debut on streaming or have a short theatrical run, similar to Roma, sounds like, should be up for Emmys, but not for the Oscars. No one wants a freaking Emmy, dog. No one cares about Emmys. I mean, in the EGOT, them and the Grammys are kind of like, okay, someone will get those eventually if they want them. They just kind of give those out like candy, it feels like. But we're talking about Oscars here, man. And I mean, shots at Netflix, right?
Yeah, this is directly aimed at Netflix and specifically how everything would happen with Roma this past award season. And it's really annoying to hear the kind of rhetoric that's being espoused because it's not the first time he's commented about this. Remember, there's a fiasco about the movies being at Cannes and if they're eligible and all that nonsense. But suggesting that movies that don't have like big releases be eligible for Oscars, they go to streaming really quick if there's not a long enough exclusivity window, it's just a really slippery slope because you're really hurting independent film in general, small movies. Not everyone gets to make anything they want, like Steven Spielberg. And as a result, when they do get something made, these people usually only get it in a few hundred theaters. It only makes, if they're lucky, $3 million at the box office, right? Let's look at stuff like Cold War. Cold War barely made any money. It's already on Amazon Prime in a few weeks. It was in theaters a few months. Now, Roma is the extreme because Roma topped out at like 120 theaters or so, but Netflix doesn't release box office info, even though the movie was earning a box office. I think IndieWire estimated it made around 4 million, which is pretty solid. It's better than Burning, better than Shoplifters, better than a lot of other movies people talk about this year. But I think it's just anger at Netflix for being a disruptor. And if they want to act and operate as a traditional studio, you should be playing by the other rules everyone else has. And it's weird because like the Academy doesn't have a forced exclusivity window. They don't really have any of this. They haven't for a few years now. So it's weird that a lot of the complaints are technically not against the rules, and it's really just we want to change the rules to affect, how we award. But I just think it's a really weird form of gatekeeping because it just so obviously affects other small movies. And like, yeah, Netflix spent tens of millions of dollars pushing Roma, but it still was technically in theaters for 3 weeks exclusively and made a few $1 million there. So I mean, what's wrong with that? I don't really like the complaint. I think it's pretty annoying.
Yeah, the perspective is an interesting thing to think about in this because, like you said, Spielberg gets to make literally anything he wants. I mean, he's making a freaking West Side Story remake with Ansel Elgort. I mean, literally anything he wants. And I do think that Netflix is a disruptor, and I can understand those the old heads who want to keep things traditional and go to the movie theater and spend your $15 on a ticket and get your popcorn for $10. That's not how it is anymore, and a lot of people can't afford to go to the movies, can't access movies, can't see these small films. You talked about Cold War, a film that's on Amazon now and that people can go and watch. I think it's definitely better for more people to get their eyes on that. And even if it's in a worse setting than for it to be in theaters and have to be traditional, and then it gets forgotten, in 2 to 3 years because no one saw it. And the only people that talk about it are the people who are going to see it anyway, because they have to. These streaming services allow opportunities to people to see films that are better than the crap most people go to see. I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't go to the movies all the time, but the ones we did go to were the big blockbuster ones. You know, like we saw Star Wars in theaters. I saw all the comic book movies in theaters when they started coming out. Like that was what we would go and spend our money on because it was a family experience. But no one's going to go see these artsy films, and so giving them an opportunity to be seen is not a bad thing. It's going to be interesting to see how this is actually received moving forward because Netflix has been pushing for the last 2 years. I mean, maybe it might even be 3. The Irishman, Scorsese at the helm. You got De Niro, Pacino, Joe Pesci, a bunch of other well-known
Harvey
actors.
Keitel.
Yeah, Harvey Keitel, who are going to be leading this thing, and that is going to run up and almost certainly get a nomination, or at least be in the discussion for a nomination, unless this change is made. And at that point, then it kind of becomes Scorsese versus Spielberg in terms of the lobbying here.
Right. And well, the thing is with The Irishman is there's talk of it'll be in a theater release. The teaser they put out that really was just, words on a video. It wasn't really a teaser, but that teaser said in theaters before it said and on Netflix. So I think Netflix is going to put the biggest movies. I mean, they're making hundreds of movies a year. They're making more movies than any other studio makes, obviously. But they're going to put the biggest ones out in the theaters. And it's tough to know, how much of that is Scorsese's push. He's like, yeah, I'll make this movie. I'll take your money. But we're also putting it in theaters. Like Cuarón is credited with getting Roma in as many theaters as it could. On the other hand, maybe Netflix is just like anything that we have clear awards buzz about, we'll put in the theaters just to try and ruffle as few feathers as possible. I don't know. You could take it any way you want with this. But yeah, will it be Spielberg versus Scorsese? I don't think it'll actually get to that. But back to what you were saying about like people going to the theater. It's annoying misread that say like, oh, things that the streamers make or the way they put them out, they should be. I was like, no, these are movies, and the reason they're not in theaters is because movies occupy a smaller piece of the pop culture pie chart now. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. Less tickets are sold now than they were 10 years ago, even though with rising ticket prices, we have big opening day weekends still and records broken. So, I mean, this also contributes to the Oscars ratings going down. Less people are just in the movie space. There's more competition. It's obvious, right? We're putting this on YouTube. YouTube didn't really exist as a place where people use hours of their time 10 years ago, video games, Twitch, all this stuff, right? So any way you can to make movies accessible and viable should be used. And thus the Oscars, which the whole point is to preserve the record of the film industry and showcase the best it does. You don't want to cross off, again, the small films, the independent films, many of which are often the best of the year. So it's a really frustrating stance, especially since the talk is that Spielberg was leading the charge for Green Book, because of course he was, Yeah. So I think this is far from over as a talking point, but it's, as you said, it came up pretty quick, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it is funny to think about how Spielberg was pushing so hard for Green Book. And it really feels a lot kind of like we've been talking about with the Academy for the last couple of years, how there's kind of like this new guard that's been moving in as the Academy has been expanding, and this old guard that is still heavily entrenched and has such a strong voice. I mean, I think that's what's going to make this such an interesting topic to watch, because Spielberg, I think, for better or for worse, really has a major influence on a lot of people. I mean, he's one of the living legends of film at this point. And I think a lot of people take what he has to say and will listen to it. So how the Academy handles this and how they look at it. I mean, they talked about adding categories. I don't know if this is something that they would even consider, but potentially like having a category for best streaming movie or something like that.
Yeah, no, there's no way that would fly. It's just like the popular movie.
It would be interesting
stuff. I don't think that would have any support from actual creators. Just more like the angry Oscar people, which Spielberg is a creator, of course. But yeah, like remember when everyone was mad about Best Popular Film as a way, instead of just Best Film, which is what Best Picture is. I think that would happen right again if you tried to make a lesser label like that.
But ultimately, how does something like that affect the Oscars to throw out? Like, I would almost bet that they're going to throw out, like, float out ideas like that to see how people respond, and then, you know, pull back when they do get that negative response. I agree, people won't be happy about it.
Yeah, you know, I think they should focus on slightly different things that also kind of award other types of films, like a breakthrough performance award of some kind, or some kind of stunt or action-based award. There are a bunch of ways, and there's a lot of pieces about this. Just, you know, ways to expand the Oscars, you know, bring up more interest in other categories, but also chances to recognize the variety of excellence in film that we have every year. So it's all one big kerfuffle, honestly, and we'll see as more talk comes out. I mean, just the Spielberg camp's credit, one of the complaints on that side is that Roma's massive push into independent theaters and dominating that, and also the financial push, kind of hurt other foreign language films, specifically the Sony Pictures movies, Capernaum and Never Look Away, which were both also nominated for foreign language film. They did not get to release until after the holidays when there was more space. So part of the anger is not so much that Roma was not in theaters that long, but that the way they were in the theaters for only a certain amount of time, but also affecting other movies that were trying to be more traditional. So there's a lot of sides to it. So I'm curious to see how it plays out, because obviously it'll come up again.
Drop your opinion in a comment below this video, or you know, hit us up on our SoundCloud. We really want to hear from other people and what their perspective is on this, and we appreciate all the support that you give, all the interactions. Also hit us up on Twitter at Nowstalgia Pod, and you can leave your opinion there.